Well, here we are. Poetry project number 16. Pro number 16. The grand finale. I keep going back and forth on emotions and how to do this last one. Part of me feels like it should be, I should be wearing like a party hat and doing a dance and like celebrating, how fabulous we are and how much poetry we've read to each other over the past 16 weeks. And the other half is kind of really sad about it. The fact that it's ending. I think the theme of today, if there is a theme, is this kind of like bittersweetness. Anyway, today I had my pick of all of the challenges that I gave you. And I have to admit, I did spend some time sort of assembling them in interesting combinations. So, for example, I could combine, I could fulfill the requirement of my first challenge to you, which was a female Canadian poet who is not Margaret Atwood, by reading a Stephanie Bolster poem, which was also a challenge. Stephanie Bolster was a challenge because she is a female Canadian poet who isn't Margaret Atwood. Or I was also thinking I could read you one of my poems because I am a female Canadian poet who isn't Margaret Atwood. I also found a really great villanelle, which I'm going to send to you. Brilliant use of the form. The only reason I'm not reading it is because it's quite depressing, even though it's a great poem. And I thought maybe a little bit of a happier note was required for today. But that was another option as well. So the one I ended up going with was minimalist poetry. One of my earlier challenges to you. The reason I love minimalist poetry is because it accomplishes one of the things that I think poetry should do, which is to express a grand or deep or complicated emotion in as few and simple words as possible. So I'm going to read a poem for you that I think does that. Grammar, sorry. I'm going to read for you a poem that I think does that. Was that an improvement? I'm not really sure. Anyway, this poem is by a 13th century Persian poet, writer, and theologian, I believe, named Rumi, R-U-M-I. Not an area of literature that I know very much about, but that's the point of Poetry Project, right? So this is Secret Places, a poem by Rumi. And look, I'm fulfilling an additional challenge because I have it memorized. Secret Places. Lovers find secret places inside this violent world where they make transactions with beauty. Reason says, nonsense. I have walked and measured the walls here. There are no such places. Love says, there are. Aww. So because that's quite a short poem, I thought I would fill out the rest of our time with nostalgia, which is even better than poetry, or actually, has a complicated relationship to poetry, I would say. I'm sure you would agree. So I looked it up and we posted our first poetry project, PoPro 1, on Thursday, October 22nd, a million years ago. 16 weeks plus a couple of little breaks in between. Oh my gosh. So I was like, this will be fun. I'll look up things that can happen in 16 weeks. For example, maybe you can walk from here to New York in 16 weeks, or maybe, I don't know, stuff happens. So I Googled it, and you know what came up? Just pregnancy hits. Your fetus at 16 weeks is doing this, or toys for the expectant mama at 16 weeks. And nothing else. So I had to come up with a few on my own. A plant can become a slightly bigger plant in 16 weeks. An Icarus can grow into a slightly bigger Icarus in 16 weeks. And a Chris can become a slightly bigger, taller, stronger, wiser, and happier Chris than she was 16 weeks ago. Things that have happened since our first PoPro. I did the English Lit GREs on October 24th, and then I did the regular GREs, that sneaky Hydra, a week later. Hydra didn't stand a chance, October 30th, woo! Even though it did not feel like that at the time. So much has changed in 16 weeks, I could hardly believe it. At that point, I would have just started improv. Wasn't really feeling too great about being home and not in New Zealand. And you know what? I'm so happy now. I didn't think that I would be this happy. And it's due in large part to you and Poetry Project. Honestly, just yeah, it just brought back good memories of us doing the same thing at McGill. And yeah, it's just been really fun to hang out with you every Thursday. So that's what I have to say about that. Other things that have happened, yeah, the whole GRE thing, all of the grad school applications, all of them start to finish. Not to mention hearing back from York, that's a new thing. Oh, my relationship with Emily Dickinson was way more troubled than it is now since we reconciled our differences. And I honestly have learned so much from doing this with you and just exploring, taking a little time and doing some research, spending time in front of the camera, all that good stuff. It's been really special and I'm going to miss it, but I also know that we're going to come up with something else. And it might not be PoPro, but it'll still be spectacular. So that's something that I take comfort in. Well, at this point, I'm just rambling at you because I don't want to say goodbye. Gosh, I don't want to say goodbye. It's been really special. Gosh, and I love getting your poetry projects every week. It's so cool. You're such a good reader. You always bring the life out of the poem. And yeah, you make it so special every week. And you're such a wonderful singer. Seriously. Just wonderful. Yeah. So I'm going to peer pressure you to put more stuff out there because we need to have it. We as the human community need to have your voice among us because it makes us better. So yeah, peer pressure. Can you feel it? It's flowing. Peer pressure is flowing. And I may not see you next Thursday on PoPro, but I will see you sometime soon on Skype. And I'm excited about that too. So, mwah! Love you lots, Anya, and I'll see you in the next adventure.